Hello, friends and family on Facebook, perhaps YouTube. I have thought about the situation with the recent suicide of Robin Williams, the Hollywood actor and comedian, and I'm very strongly a fan of his, especially the movies What Dreams May Come and Dead Poet Society. So, when I say what I'm about to say, after thinking on this for a while, I can tell you that I'm certainly not uh, without some admiration and respect for his work, and especially those movies. And of course, I saw him back in his early days in his career as a comedian with on the show, as Mork and Mindy and things like that. So the the point is that even though he had these fantastic works, which are among my most favored works in terms of some of the top 10 movies, let's say, I would put it in the top 10 or 20 in favorite movies. The fact that he committed suicide, I think, is a very cowardly act. Of course, excusing the idea that it could have been that he was suffering from some sort of serious illness, as in obviously a mental illness or something like that. But in any case, there's really no excuse for suicide from the Hermetic point of view. In fact, if we read in what I call alternative spirituality, or the Hermetic works by Franz Bardon, that's Franz Bardon. Franz Bardon was a great author and magician. And in the practice of magical evocation, you can look at one of the Kabbalistic Earth Zone intelligences, or angels, if you will, and find there in the Earth Zone intelligences an angel that, as a minister of creation, is tasked with him and his subordinates the task of, if they're preventing suicide and unable to do so, then those subordinates or this minister of creation is supposed to go and help that soul or that spirit on the other side. Now, some of you won't buy that at all. Some of you don't believe in this, and that's perfectly fine and acceptable by me. I've got some absolute fascinating proofs as far as Kabbalistic angels astrology goes, and the validity of that in my own life and many other lives of those that I've shared or discussed that knowledge with about their horoscopes. But and some of the other practices surrounding the Kabbalistic knowledge. I'll say that that suggests that even from a Hermetic point of view, suicide is a very serious thing. It's not an acceptable option. It's not a path of growth. It's actually weakness, and it's actually a severe stunting of the evolution of the soul or the spirit. Whichever school of thought you want to define the appropriate term from. We're basically talking about the same thing in overall, without getting into some technical details. If we look at it from the mention of this from the Meyer case, Billy Edward Albert Meyer out of Switzerland, I recall, I don't know if it was from Figu, Figu, or the contact notes listed on the future of mankind.uk or theyfly.com, but I do remember in the Talmud Jmmanuel, 4th edition, which I think has now been superseded by an even newer edition. The Talmud Jmmanuel is alleged to be the authentic original text of the book of Matthew. And in any case, the teaching on suicide there is and one needs to study it on their own. Don't trust my sharing you my version or my interpretation of that. You need to go and study that for yourself. But the bottom line idea is that it's never acceptable. That it's an offense against yourself. It's an offense against your own soul, your own spirit, your own consciousness. It's an offense against creation. And in fact, going from the Talmud Jmmanuel, the idea is that you would actually have to come back and do this gig, so to speak, or do this path, this journey, being reincarnated once again, and just go through it all over again. You're stunting your own growth. You're going beyond the laws of creation, and it's against everything that is in the creational laws and recommendations, in essence. So, I mean, that's a good source of material, and the other writings about that from the Meyer case, or Figu, or the Talmud Jmmanuel, for example, all from that the same source. So the other thing is that there was a book that I found extremely interesting before I got into the a little bit more in-depth study of the Meyer material. Of course, I've got way more to learn, and I'm not an expert on that. But the Universal Oneness by David H. Lewis is about a similar topic, in the sense that he claimed to have access, this author, if he even ever existed, having been a Baptist minister, or the son of a Baptist minister actually, had gained access to the Great Pyramid in Egypt to verify some of the Bible and the books in the Bible. And in doing so, he found what he termed the Akashic, or the Akashic records, which is a physical hall of records with a physical, like a 3D laser player that would play everything past, present, and future. And he claimed that there was this place, outside of our atmosphere, for example, that would also be considered the Hall of Records. So the idea was that there was never anything that a human being could say, think, or do that would not be recorded there. So this idea that some people go and risk their lives with extreme sports, or maybe put themselves in danger because they don't have the respect and love for life and for themselves, and it's kind of quiet, it's kind of silent suicide, if you will, or a suicide attempt. But it's the idea that no matter what, you can't take your own life. You can't get to that point to where it's like not known in the halls of eternity, in the memory of your own spirit. So this really is it's a great offense. It's not the way to go. And I'm recording this from our family nursing care office, actually, where I visit from time to time my family and the business, Highland Home for Seniors. And before that, many years ago, about 10 or 15 years ago, for 5 years, I directly administrated Vanderbilt Care Incorporated, assistant administrator of that residential care facility or nursing care business. And death and disease and hardships of that kind were not only a personal experience of mine in dealing with that in the business. I also had the personal challenge after that for some period of time. So I've seen it firsthand, where people have gone through particular circumstances or situations where they wanted to exit out. They wanted to do the suicide or commit suicide. People that had contracted severe diseases and so on. And even in that situation, it's not an acceptable form of dealing with life. And it was important to learn that in some of our training. I don't remember if it was Red Cross or just some of the other training that we have over the years to work in this business. And I'm talking about the nursing field, or nursing care, or residential care. One of the things that we understood is that something like 8 times out of 10, I don't know if it's 9 times out of 10, but an extremely high rate of the time, if you can intervene in someone with someone who has thoughts of suicide, or maybe is attempting suicide, or is really giving it serious consideration, that most of the time they will not return to that attempt, to that line of thinking. So it's certainly worth, as we were trained and as we were educated in that, it's certainly worth the education, the attempt to intervene. So I guess I'm just making this video very quickly to say that it's not the way to go. And you can talk about the different religions or lines of thought, but I'm particularly focused on Hermetics, or magic, if you will, the ancient art and science of magic, and astrology, of course, but authors like Franz Bardon, from the Kabbalistic point of view, whether you accept that or not, I really don't care, but I've seen some amazing things and enlightenment from that material, but also give a great weight to the treasure, the real treasure, that is within the Billy Edward Albert Meyer writings and material, and to give great weight and consideration to that teaching, which I shared a little bit earlier as far as the perspective as I understood it. But you should study it yourself if you want to understand that, and that was what I understood from the Talmud Jmmanuel, 4th edition, about how it's a coward's way. It's weak. It's cowardice, and it's against the laws of creation. It's against the recommendations of creation. It's against life. It's against your own spirit, your own soul, your own consciousness to do that. So, on the other hand, Robin Williams was an inspiration with the movie Dead Poets Society. When I was in Rome last year, thanks to the wonderful owner of the Rome City Hostel, I was there and asked him, like, hey, what do I see? What do I want to visit? What's cool here? And he said a lot of people come from all over the world to see the Capuchin Crypt, and that's Capuchin, Crypt, Crypt, which is kind of connected with the Catholic Church there. It's a kind of tomb, if you will, and a museum, and a gallery there. It's really interesting, and it's worth a see. And it's something like the bones and skulls of 4,000 or 3,700, some friars, Catholic monks, who had agreed to give over their remains, and for the purpose of this display. So when you go in there, there's lampshades and walls that are made of bones, hip bones, femurs, forearms, elbows, whatever. Not elbows, but you get the idea. They're made out of skulls, and the walls also made out of the leg bones or the arm bones of skulls, and feet and hands and so on. It's rather macabre, but on the other hand, the purpose of this exhibition that the friars, these Catholic friars or monks, agreed to give over their remains for is to teach about the brevity, the shortness of life. And in that beautiful teaching, in that beautiful exhibition, if you will, in that macabre sense, you are reminded in that death is the great teacher, as Dr. Leo Buscaglia said, the Dr. Love, the author of Living, Loving, and Learning, the book, and also the first founder of Love 101, a university class that he had founded on love in University of California. So death is the great teacher. Death teaches life. Death teaches there is a limit. Time is short. The hourglass is turned upside down, and the sands of time are ever pouring. And as Bardon would say himself, time is like water passing under a bridge, never to be recovered. So use your time wisely. Respect and admire and appreciate life, the gift of life, the miracle of life, the precious value of life, and the miracle of the gift of now, this precious and prescient moment, which is what we have now. It's the one currency that we all share, in to one extent, lesser or greater, and that is the currency of time. but it's something that we can never recover and never get back. And again, as Bardon said, it's like water passing under a bridge, never to return. And it is to say that there is no promise of tomorrow, there is only the gift of today. Although one should plan wisely and prepare for the future, absolutely. So in closing on this topic, Dead Poets Society, they had a great saying, carpe diem, seize the day. And there's a beautiful scene from that movie where Robin Williams' character, as the college professor there, the teacher, takes the boys forward and looks at the previous students at the university who have since passed on and have become worm's meat. And thus, carpe diem, seize the day, was the teaching. Seize the moment, value today. So I have a lot of respect for the work that Robin did, but I have no place for weakness and no mercy for the wasting of life. And in my view, in the study of Hermetics, Kabbalistic teaching, also from the Meyer case, Billy Edward Albert Meyer, the Introduction to the Spiritual Teachings, the Talmud of Jmmanuel, it is not acceptable. It is a sign of weakness. It is a great tragedy to one's own soul, to one's own path and journey as a soul, as spirit to have to relearn the lesson and come back here and do it all over again. Because the purpose of being, the purpose of consciousness is the evolution of consciousness. The purpose of spirit is the evolution of spirit and the rejoining with creation. The evolution of the spirit to rejoin creation. So, as above, so below. That's the Hermetic axiom. So I'll close this now, and suggested reading would be the Talmud of Jmmanuel, or to go to the futureofmankind.uk website about Billy Edward Albert Meyer, and look up these search terms, suicide, in the Talmud of Jmmanuel. And again, it is interesting to note that in the practice of magical evocation by Franz Bardon, there is a Kabbalistic intelligence in the Earth Zone that is actually, you can call it an angel or Kabbalistic intelligence, which is actually assigned to deal with such souls that would attempt to commit suicide, and those that they fail to prevent, they are assigned as ministers of creation to assist them on the other side. So you might find that interesting. This is Michael Vanderpool coming at you from Saline County, Missouri, Marshall, Missouri, on this beautiful day in August 13, 2014. It's about 1:30 in the afternoon, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So enjoy, and don't forget to check out those books. And you should read it yourself, because it is enriching, and it's a teaching that I actually believed helped a family member once, about a year and a half ago. I had shared those writings from those the books and the sources that I have referred to in this video, and I think that it actually turned that person's life around. And in the face of very challenging circumstances, actually in the face of pretty harsh disease, that person has overcame and succeeded quite well, and quite a lot longer had he took an early exit. So have a look at those works that I've recommended. They are very rich and deep in spiritual value, and in the case of the Meyer material, it really is a treasure. So it's time and money, if the case may be. In some cases you can find the material for free, but it's well worth the time invested and the thoughts contemplated. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. It's Michael Vanderpool, or TIGR7170 on YouTube. And if you're watching me on Facebook, hello, friends and family from around